episode 112 of the Inside the Mind podcast. And I'm super pumped to be joined by Paige McPherson, who, I mean, last time I checked this stat, I don't know if it's still true in the last week or so, the first female American to compete 3 times in the Summer Olympics for taekwondo. I mean, first of all, congratulations. I'm not sure if you heard of that before, but
Thank you so much
on that.
Yeah.
And
Thank you so much.
I mean, it just kind of got me thinking about just the whole concept of being first in something so big in the Olympics. I mean, I don't even know if I was in a position, if I could even comprehend kind of what that means. I'm intrigued kind of what you feel or what you think about when you hear like you're the first to do this thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of like you too. I can't really wrap my head around that. I'm humbled by the opportunity to be the first. If anything, I hope that young athletes can understand that if they dedicate themselves to their passion and, just pursue it, anything is possible. So I've been doing taekwondo for over a decade, more than that. So again, I think I've always strived to be better than yesterday. And throughout my career, it's always been to get to the gold medal at the Olympic Games. And I wasn't able to do it successfully the first and second time. So it's like, well, might as well just try it a third time, right? 3 times the charm.
Exactly. That's a saying for a reason. So I believe in it.
Yeah.
But you had mentioned there getting better every day. And that's a concept that I love that you mentioned that, because I love that concept so much. And I think it's so important to talk about as well, because there might be a perception from some people that when they get better each day, it has to be like a huge gain, but that's obviously not.
Yeah.
Like, I've really taken the mindset of, even if it's just like 0.1% better, or at least if you have the intention, just the intention to get better is almost just enough of kind of a growth, healthy mindset to push yourself to the goal you want to accomplish.
Absolutely. Even just like picking yourself up, right, when you had a bad day. I think that's even just a small little step towards, just mentally, like you said, getting better and understanding that, being successful and having all these accomplishments, we've been a lot of the time we've fallen so many times. We've failed essentially so many times. But I think the most important thing is to be consistent, persevering through those hard times and just picking yourself up and just keep going.
The other thing you mentioned there was kind of the long-term goal of a gold medal at the Olympic Games. And I think it was an interview that you had done that I came across, or maybe it was a social media post, where you talked about the importance of having small goals and a short vision, which I mean, I think it goes without saying how important it is, but I've kind of thought about that, and I wonder in someone in your position if it's tricky to balance those kind of with the Olympics looming, 4 or 5 year gaps in between Olympics. That's obviously a very long-term goal approach, but then there's still, you have to balance these short-term goals and visions and whatnot. So I'm just curious, when you, I don't know if I remember saying that quote, or just when you think about small goals and short visions, kind of how far ahead do you try and plan in kind of retrospect of small goals? Is it like, do you plan daily, weekly, monthly, that type of thing?
I generally do it monthly, especially now, since the Olympics is literally 3 months from now, less than that. But really, one of my coaches, Master Park, he actually made me think of it in a different angle, thinking it going backwards. So we know that the Olympics is in July. So what are we doing before? So in June, we plan about competing more, just to assess where we at based off of our training, since we've been training. And then now that we're in May, what is it that we can control now? So I think the really important thing to do is, yes, the Olympics is the ultimate goal. But once we start thinking big, that's when we start to put pressure on ourselves, right? That's when we hold expectations that maybe we're not necessarily ready for right now. So I think it's really essential to stay current. What can I do now? Because like you say, the Olympics, whether it's 4 years away, 2, 3, it's literally right around the corner. So it's really important to kind of just zone in on a weekly basis to prepare for the main event.
When you mentioned there, when you think of the long-term goals and you're not necessarily ready for it and how much pressure that can put on yourself, I've never heard that before, but it really clicked and my mind started to go a million miles a second, because
exactly.
I kind of think about if you have somebody that they have a 3 or 4 year goal on whatever they're doing, professional, athletic, personal, obviously the person they are today isn't going to be the person they are in 3 and 4 years. Like they're going to be so much of a better person. They've gone through so much
absolutely
growth, but they need to go through that growth to handle the pressure, which is like you're putting all these expectations on yourself for someone that isn't ready for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's a big title. It's a title event. It's the biggest world stage. So yeah, right now, thinking of it right now, especially maybe if you don't feel ready, it can put a lot of pressure and essentially make you think, oh, I don't think I can do it. But if we take away all that exterior noise and we take away that title, we focus on what can I do now, that allows you to just focus and relax and just train to your best ability.
I don't know if you've ever encounter situations where maybe you catch yourself being too long-term focused and kind of that pressure might start to build, those anxiety feelings. I'm just curious kind of what your coping strategies or relaxation strategies are, what kind of tricks and tools you have from when you start to feel a little anxious, a little pressured.
I think the most important thing is to be aware that it's okay to feel that. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you care, you want to do well. If you're not freaking out, there's something wrong with you, right? So you have to understand that this is the process of getting to your goal. You're going to feel those anxieties. You're going to have bad days. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to understand that it's only temporary. Right. And one of the things that I do, especially when I think of pressure, I am a firm believer that God is forever my strength behind me. I read, I even talk to my loved ones. I talk to my training partners. And I mean, again, when I talk to my coach, Terrence Jennings, we've been in this, we've done this twice now. Right. So if anything, I have the advantage as in I've done this 2 times. And so I kind of already know how to manage those stressful times.
That support system, I mean, it goes without saying, whether it's, a family, a friend, spiritual, whatever it is, a coach, that support system, it might not be the same support system for everybody in the world, but just having a support system. I mean, I think it's
just
hard
having to talk about it.
Yeah. I think it's hard for a lot of people because they almost might feel that when they have support, that it's like they couldn't do it on their own. But how many people can actually do it 100% on their own? Like how many people can get to your position without a coach, without friends helping you, family
absolutely
driving you everywhere type of thing, right?
Yeah. And I think in sports and in our society, they kind of paint this image as an athlete of doing it by themselves, on their own. And market it as in you can do anything by yourself. But when you see those athletes and you meet them, they're so humble, right? And they always have like certain people in their circle that they give everything to, because, there are times when we fall down and we need that hand to just, help us up, or that person to just yell at us and be like, hey, let's do this, So I'm definitely a firm believer of having a support system. Also, I think that's something that's really important is discipline. I really liked the quote of, I do what I hate, but I do it like I love it. Because without discipline, you're nothing. Because as soon as you get pressure, you'll quit. So it's really important to, regardless of what we feel, you have to mentally just know that you're going to have those times and you're just going to have to do it anyways.
I
Mike
love,
Tyson.
yeah,
That's his quote.
exactly. I was going to say, I think that was Tyson, but I mean,
Yeah, Mike Tyson.
the whole discipline thing, I've really recently started to change the way I talk and replacing the word motivation, how important motivation is. And I've been replacing it with discipline, because motivation, I look at it, if I have a goal of going to the gym 7 days a week, at the beginning, I'll be really motivated, but there might be those 1 or 2 days where I'm not motivated.
Absolutely.
And if you rely so much on motivation, then you'll have those up and downs, where discipline, like you said, it's recognizing that the things you love, the things you hate to do, you'll do them like you love them. You kind of trick your mind into loving it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, no matter how hard it's I'm going to do it.
Yeah, because you're not going to be motivated the whole time. I mean, success is hard work. People don't like hard work. And there's a lot of people that are also not in your corner when they try to make anything difficult. It's easy if you're solely focusing on motivation to be unmotivated and then just be like, all right, I quit. So like we said, discipline is that factor that you've already committed to it. So regardless of what's going to happen, you already have that, inner confirmation that you're going to do it regardless. So I think that's really important.
And what you just said there about the more you focus on being motivated, it's like the easier it is to be unmotivated. I've never, that really clicked in my head. That really clicked. And it's like anything in life, when you focus too much on it, the opposite happens. It's like saying like you get a boyfriend or girlfriend when you least like expected type of thing. You go years and years looking for one, and then all of a sudden you're in a relationship, or even in a match, like thinking about athletics. Like the more you're in a match thinking about a certain aspect of it, you ended up just messing up on it. Like I think about baseball, for example, you think about don't strike out, don't strike out, don't strike out. Then
and then somehow you get yourself to that. Yeah, it's so true. I remember specifically a competition where I was like, I just don't want to be in sudden death. Like that's all I need to do. I can't. Literally the whole day I was in sudden death. Like psychologically, I was like, okay, let's just make this difficult for myself. Right. Yeah. So
for those that aren't familiar with Taekwondo, what is sudden death? What does sudden death look like? Sport.
Yeah. So just I'll kind of give a background. Taekwondo is a Korean martial art. We'll have the debut of karate this year at the Olympics. And of course, we have wrestling and judo. And I think the difference between it is Taekwondo has more emphasis on kicking, combinations. I always like to say it's like a physical game of chess, because you can trap people, you have strategy against your opponents. With our scoring system pertaining to the Olympic event, we have draws and matches. A match is 3 rounds, 2 minutes, and we have a minute rest in between. It's the deciding factor is who has the most points, and based off of the caliber of kicks that you execute, the higher the points that you have. For example, if you kick somebody in the body, you get 2 points. If you kick somebody in face, which is more difficult, you get 3. And then if you add any more like a spinning technique to that kick, you are rewarded extra 2 points. So sometimes after 3 rounds, the score is the same. And then we go into a 4th round where it's called sudden death. So whoever gets to 2 points automatically wins that match.
And if one, like you said, one kick, I think you said is 2 points. It's like
2 points. Yeah.
Kick.
You got to kick. Exactly.
Crazy pressure. And I mean, that's interesting, because I didn't think of Taekwondo of as such a mental sport. Like you said, there's
absolutely.
Game of chess. I mean, I'm
a
pretty avid chess player, so I know how mental chess is. I mean, it's totally mental. It's all mental. And to add a physical aspect of Taekwondo to a sport like that, it's crazy. What do you do day by day, week by week, month by month, whatever it is, to train your mind? Because training your body physically is, I think everyone can see it on Instagram. They can
everyone does. Yep. Everyone
XYZ account and see a workout routine. But how do you train your mind kind of day to day, week to week?
Oof. Well, I think that really comes over the years. I've gotten a lot better at it. But usually mentally, I try to stay current. I can't think of the Olympics. Of course, my main goal is to win it. But right now I'm trying to control everything around that. And right now I was just telling you, I just had my second practice and I was frustrated and exhausting. It was endurance. It's endurance week. So it's just nonstop kicking. But I always try to look at the positive things. I'm very critical of myself too. I try to be rational about my performances. And again, my main goal is to be consistent, because when I'm consistent now and on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, more than likely I can be consistent at the Olympic Games.
When you mentioned there, getting frustrated over a bad practice, for example, or bad training, how do you judge what's a good versus bad training session for yourself? Is it the effort? Is it the results of it? How do you tell between the two?
Maybe it's more of an effort thing for me personally. When I hit that brick wall in practice, did I climb over it, or did I kind of like, oh, I'll climb it tomorrow? Yeah. And today it was kind of like, oh, I'll kind of climb it tomorrow, but at the end of the day, I recognize it. It's all about awareness. And then I was giving myself a pep talk. Okay, Paige, you need to do better tomorrow. We'll do all the things right now to rest and recover. And then we'll mentally prepare for the next day. And also I actually talked to a mind coach, sports psychologist, Alfredo, and he's currently in Mexico. He works with a lot of athletes, not just in taekwondo and not just from the US, but all around the world. And one of the things that he really tried to make me realize is that at the end of the day, sometimes when we get to this stage, it's all work for us, right? We have this mindset that we're willing to die to get to that Olympic gold medal. But at the end of the day, we have to sit back and realize, are we doing it just to win, or are we doing it because we love this sport, right? Because when we love something, when we're happy and when we're excited, that's when we perform the best. It's not under stressful circumstances or this need or addiction to win, right? So he always tries to put me in a positive mindset, because whenever I'm positive, whenever I'm mentally there, I can do anything. But when I'm like putting on pressure, as we were saying, when we're stressed out, when we find this like unrealistic need to win, and what if we don't win, what comes after that? So it's kind of all that mental awareness, to be able to, at the end of the day, yes, we're there to win and we're doing all the steps to prepare for that, but we have to enjoy this process as well.
I mean, beautifully put, and so much to unpack there.
Thank you.
The whole passion piece is so interesting. And even it got me thinking, because you were talking about there, like having a love for the sport versus a love for winning, or an addiction to winning.
Yeah.
I think that's hard for a lot of people, because in a lot of aspects, they feel the same. Like the brain, the chemicals the brain releases when you do something like that you like. I don't know if there's a perfect answer to like differentiate between the two. Perhaps it's about going through adversity, and when you go through adversity, it's how hard can you push through, and if you push through as hard as you can, then maybe that's the clue that it's passion. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a topic that everybody has their own opinion on, and but I mean, I think I do agree with him, because just maybe based off of my own personality and the way I need to be motivated. I think when it came to 2016, for example, when I made that team, I literally did everything physically, mentally, spiritually possible to get me to that gold medal. And I was confident enough that I was going to get there. And the very first fight that I went up against a competitor that, I didn't even think of her, because she wasn't even one of the hardest athletes in my division. And I lost to her, like the very first fight, 6 minutes in, and I'm done,
Wow.
And then she lost. And so there was no chance for me to even go for the bronze medal. And I was devastated. Like, I did everything right. And when I finally kind of changed my mindset into, all right, let me just perform and fight to better myself, to better my own story. Let's not think about Tokyo. Let's just thinking about doing the best that I can now. And I found my love for taekwondo again, and I was excited and I wanted to learn. And all of a sudden, 4 years later, I had the best career of my life. These last 4 years, I was able to qualify in the hardest way possible, which is through ranking. I qualified top 6. And once you make top 6 in an Olympic weight division, which is 2 weight divisions combined into one, I was able to qualify myself based off of results at World Championships, medaling, winning a Grand Prix, Pan Am Games, Pan Am Championships, all of these things. And it was because I enjoyed it, Yeah. So I think there's a fine line, like we were saying, of having to win and then just enjoying the process and allowing yourself to win, if that makes sense.
It 100% makes sense. And when you were talking there about how you look at like the personal growth journey that you go through taekwondo, it made me think about, just as much as I might read a book to enhance my personal growth. I might do X, Y, and Z to be a better person. It's like you can do the same thing in sports as well. Like, use your sport as the anchor to make you better in all these other aspects of life. Like in taekwondo, when you work on, training in taekwondo, physical or mental, discipline, motivation, confidence, all these like sports psychology terms, they're inevitably going to help you just in the overall aspect of your life.
Yep. All these soft skills, learning teamwork, discipline, all of it. Yeah, it's very important. It will easily be translated after my athletic career.
And I wanted to backtrack for a second because you were talking about judging good versus bad training sessions and getting over that brick wall. And it made me, I was kind of asking myself the question as you were speaking there, like, getting over that brick wall, like, is it realistic to get over that brick wall 100% of the time? Or is the more realistic expectations to try your hardest to get over? And if you can't get over, then perhaps kind of reflecting back and recognizing, like, I think a lot of people get obsessed. I bring this up because they get obsessed that like they have to get over everything that they do. And there's no room for failure, which I think
there's no room for error.
Right. Which I think might be a wrong perspective because failure is going to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's the hardest thing to get over is, especially in athletics, we are perfectionists. So the better we control things, the better we think that we'll have a better outcome. But again, with this journey, there's a lot of downs.
You talked about one there in 2016. You can't get really more down than that.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think the epiphany was that it's okay to fall down. And you'll hear it from everyone, Kobe Bryant, about how, failing is such a learning opportunity. We probably learn the most when we fail versus when we win, because we learn how to maybe never put ourselves in that situation again. We'd like to do. So, but I think it's just more of a mental thing of being okay and being imperfect. And again, we're taught that we have to be 100% the whole time, where that's honestly unrealistic.
And as you were speaking there too, and it kind of made me think about in the moment when somebody fails at whatever they're doing, again, sports, life, job, whatever it is, I think recency bias is like a huge factor. And I bring up recency bias in like the context of tomorrow I could do something bad. Say, for example, at my job, I can make a mistake in my job. And that one mistake will be the only thing I think about when I judge myself at my job. And I like discredit the past 4 years and all the good things in the past 4 years, right?
And you start to spiral down too. It's also essentially learning how to have more self-care, being okay that you messed up and being able to be positive instead of negative. Because as soon as you're negative, it just starts to build up, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, all right, I quit. But once you learn that, okay, I did bad this time, but I can do better next time, it gives a positive response, and then you're still motivated and you can continue your day. Yeah.
And I would add to that too, not only I can do better next time, but let me remember all the times that I did do well.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Right. Like I get like I think of your,
and it's so hard to do that though. It really is. So hard to reflect about the past. Yeah.
Especially, I mean, when I think about 2016 for you, like losing at the biggest stage of them all, it kind of seems weird to compare that to maybe some of the lesser fights that you did like in the years leading up to the Olympics, right? Like you get to the big stage, that's what matters the most. So it kind of feels weird, but perhaps it's about the thing how we talked about before, when we were talking about, I think it was discipline and doing what you hate the way you love it and tricking your mind into things. Maybe that's part of the equation as well. Just tricking your mind to understand that all these things are equal. You've done it all like so many times so well. Don't let this one thing stray you from your path.
And I think that at the end of the day, once we reach that goal, whether we are successful or not, the real reward is the journey. And so when we have these opportunities of highs and lows, of victories and difficulties, if we hate or if we wish that away, we're wishing away life. You know what I mean? We're wishing away that movie we watch of this person pursuing his dreams, but at the end of the day, you see the process and you realize, oh wow, that was an amazing, movie, right? Without pain, there is no victory, right? So we have to understand that we're going to have these hard times, but once we get to that podium and once we execute that dream, it makes it much more worthwhile.
100%. I wanted to take a little detour for a second because there was a Instagram post that I came across from you where you talked about grinding through COVID. And I think you had the quote was like, the true grind never stops, it adapts. A difference between stopping
absolutely.
and adapting. I mean, COVID is like a very obvious case of when to adapt. So I'll get to COVID in a second, but as a more general sense, how do you know, or what are the feelings you feel like when it's time to adapt in whatever you're doing? For example, taekwondo, like how do you know that it's time for a change, or how do you know that it's time to adapt what you're doing?
I think I really generally assess when to adapt is based off of my results. And especially I adapt based off of my body. So if I have been injured, if I have exceeded the amount of training days and I just am not getting the results that I want or I need to get, I try to assess and change or adapt in that given situation. All of the experiences that I've had throughout the years, I've learned that, generally speaking, before when I was a younger athlete, I was very fortunate to have a coach that kind of made me adapt to those situations. But it's really all about basically assessing yourself. What is it that you're doing to make sure that you maintain a high performance? And in order to do that, you have to look at your environment, your eating schedule, your recovery schedule, your training schedule, all of those other factors. And so once you kind of think of those things and apply, that's when you change your routine in order to kind of find the right routine to maintain that high performance.
For sure. And it made me think about with a lot of the younger athletes that I coach with, or that I coach. I don't coach with them, I coach them, but they almost have like a defeatist attitude when something goes wrong. And it's almost like there's a block to understanding like what to adapt. And I try to work with them, and like we literally like there's I think a lot of things that younger athletes like they don't recognize contributes to their athletic performance that actually do. But I always take the approach with them is just like, let's just pick one thing. It could be the smallest thing in the world, but let's just adapt that just as a starting point. And then we
Yeah.
see yes or no. Does it work or not? If not, let's choose the next smallest thing. Just taking those baby
Exactly.
steps
There's a
to
lot of
adapt.
trial and error in that.
It's too
Yeah,
much. It's too much to
definitely.
bite off such a huge chunk and adapt everything at once, because then
Yep.
A, it's unrealistic to change everything at once.
Yeah.
And B, when you change everything at once, I think it's hard to know what actually worked and what didn't. Like if you
Yep.
change 10 things at once, who knows what the effect of each did?
Exactly. And usually when I was younger, actually, my coach encouraged us to have like a taekwondo journal. So after every practice, we kind of wrote down, why did I have a better performance in training? Was it that what was I eating? Did I have more sleep? What was I wearing? All of those things. And you just writing it down, and it soon became a habit as to when and where I should assess myself. So I do it again. I've been very fortunate to travel and have a lot of experiences and environments that were very different. For example, when I first went to Europe and trained there and had a time difference, it's all about adaptation there at that specific environment. And so because of my traveling, because of my experiences, I've learned that adaptation is the most important thing. And adaptation is essentially being comfortable, right, in the situation that you are now. Adaptation doesn't necessarily mean performance. It means just being okay where you're at. Right. So that's the most important thing I try to do, is wherever I'm at in my situation is try to be okay in that environment.
For a lot of people, I think okay may not seem like the ideal mood, but it's a lot better than being terrible.
Yeah. Or stressed out or frustrated. Because again, that's when you spiral out. Just simply being okay is actually a really powerful thing, because when you're relaxed and you don't have a care in the world, that's generally when you perform your best.
Exactly. Made me think about a book I read, The Inner Game of Tennis, and they talk about the exact same thing in tennis, because I love playing tennis. I love playing tennis. Everything about tennis I love, and it's such a mental sport as well. But they talk about the same thing. Once you turn your brain off and you're just comfortable on the court, that's like when you have the most success. And I think that's still true as well. Perhaps you've experienced this as well, but kind of being in an individual sport where it's just one-on-one, you don't have a team to affect the outcome. Like you need to be comfortable in your skin performing your best.
Absolutely. Yeah. And generally speaking, whenever we compete or whenever we train, like for example, in our own gym, we are the best that we can. We have the most energy. We're excited. We can do everything. And then when it comes to competitions and there's a slight change of environment, there's more pressure, there's more purpose, right? That's when we start to tighten up. And you see that necessarily we're not as good as we are in practice. So I remember in 2012, one of the things that we mentally prepared for and trained was to not care about the Olympics in a sense, as in don't care that it's about the title. Don't care about, oh, this is the one event that I have to win. No, just think of it as what we do on a daily basis. At the end of the day, this is what we do every single day. We know all the people that we're fighting, and you've beaten all those people that you were fighting at local tournaments, domestic tournaments. So this shouldn't be anything different. The only difference is that there's flashy lights and there's flags everywhere. So So I was like, okay, I get it. So that's also another thing. Whenever I go out to a competition, I always think of maybe that one previous tournament at for example, a low ranked tournament where I killed everyone. It was the exact same people that I might fight at the Olympics. But why was that? It was because it was a low caliber event. There wasn't a big flashy title, right? So that's what I always try to mentally think of as, it's the Olympics, but at the end of the day, this is what I do on a daily basis. There's nothing new. It's just a little dressed up. So.
Right. A little competition. That's all it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it made me think about too, what we talked about earlier as, when it's something like the Olympics or whatever competition it is, like it's natural to feel this way somewhat. Like there's a balance.
Oh yeah,
right? Because you care.
absolutely.
You can't not care about the Olympics, or else you wouldn't be going. Like you care somewhat to go. But at the flip side, when I think about the balance of it all, it made me think about there when you were describing that. And maybe this might be a helpful tip for athletes as well. You know, whatever competition you're going to, whether you win or lose, like your sport is still going to be there. And the next day you can just pick up and train. Like it shouldn't affect your day-to-day life too much, because it should still remain intact. Like you lose that taekwondo competition, you can still train the next day. Like it's still going to be
exactly.
there. Even though it sucks in the moment, it's all still going to be there.
There is no the end, you know, black screen and you're done, right? That we see in the movies. No, life goes on afterwards. And sometimes, again, that's when it comes to like family and friends, when you talk about your stresses. You know, my parents are just so supportive, but they have no competitive bone in their body, you know? And here I am stressing about having to win. And they're like, oh, well, you know, you just made the team and, you know, you'll be fine afterwards. And I'm like, wait, what? There's an after? No, there's no way. I have to do this. So it's good to have people put it into perspective that, you know, after this competition, life goes on. So
why do you think that you got, I guess, all the competitive bones in the family and your parents didn't get them? Is there something that happened like early on in your life where you feel like you thrived in competition or whatever?
Yeah, I definitely have a natural competitive attitude. One thing is though, my parents are not my biological parents. So maybe there's that reason. They were never athletic in their own lives, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I am competitive, but I'm more determined in being my best self. I think that's what I strive to do. I don't necessarily look around and compare. I just know that if I focus on myself and bettering myself, that I have the capability of winning it.
The last thing that I wanted to touch on before I had one last question I wanted to ask, but you mentioned comparing there, and it made me think about comparing. Obviously we shouldn't compare, but I think it's a great example of when you have some sort of bias in your head, or when you go looking for something, like you're kind of always going to find it. Cause I think when you compare yourself with somebody else, it's like you're trying to see like who's better type of thing. Is this person actually better than me or whatever? Like comparing yourself with somebody else is very negative, but just kind of putting yourself in that mindset, like you're going to inevitably like just come to the realization, you know, that this person's better than you type of thing. Like you're almost, I guess what I'm trying to say is, I had this discussion the other day with a podcast guest, and we're talking about the internet. And it's like, you can have a thought, and when you go on the internet, somebody is going to like agree with you, right? How preposterous it is. Kind of like thinking the same thing for comparing. Like you compare yourself with somebody else, like potentially thinking, oh, this person's better than me. Let me compare myself to them. And just having that kind of mindset from the get-go. I mean, I guess long story short, don't compare yourself with somebody is what I'm trying to ramble on about.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you don't know what they're going through. Nothing is going to be necessarily essentially equal. Like their lives are completely different. Their physical needs, mental needs are different. And so when you start to compare yourself, you're kind of taking away from yourself. The only way you're going to have a better performance is if you focus on yourself.
Right.
And essentially, you take away from your trainings, because then now all of a sudden you're just focusing on your opponent. Whereas the most important thing is to refocus and prepare for what is now in your life. And I think one of the things that was really successful for me too, mentally, after losing in 2016, is that whenever I had a competition, everybody was saying, you have to be perfect on that day. You have to be perfect. So it didn't matter what you were doing at training. You have good days and bad days, but essentially you have to be perfect on that day. Where in my mindset, I changed to, I don't have to be perfect on that day. I just have to do what the best I can do today, the best that I'm dealing with. So if I am injured, essentially when I'm thinking, oh, I have to be perfect, now you're putting on pressure on yourself because you realize you're not in the perfect situation. Your knee is hurt, your ankle is hurt, you're exhausted. So instead of thinking that way, what can I do my best right now? That's how I think on competition day. Okay, well, I'm really good with my front leg right now. My left leg, I have an ankle thing. So let me switch this. And again, it all comes back to adaptation, being comfortable again with yourself, because you know that, I'm a little injured here, or maybe I'm a little tired there. But essentially, getting back to that adaptation of saying, hey, I might not be perfect, but I definitely know I'm good at this right now. So let me apply that to the game now.
I think it warrants like changing what we mean by perfect. I think it should be perfect effort is perfection.
Yeah.
Not perfect results, perfect effort.
Yeah. Because
that is what you can control.
Mindset. Yeah, exactly.
The last thing I wanted to just to ask, because you had mentioned before, you work with a mental coach. I think you mentioned his name was Alfredo, was it?
Yes, I don't know his last name.
No worries. Neither do I.
Alfredo from Mexico. Yeah.
But I'm curious if you've come across any sort of other helpful resources through this athletic journey of yours, like podcasts, books, audio books, kind of things like that. If you've come across any sort of consumable media that you felt has helped shape your mindset over the years?
There's this book, I don't know who wrote it, but it's called Mind Gym. My coach had sent it to me for 2012. Basically, it's another athlete that goes about talking to other athletes and their stories and how they coped with the pressure of, getting to their goal. That was a really good one. I do listen to podcasts, but most importantly, I don't necessarily look above or look ahead I don't look at like big names like LeBron, Kobe, Mike Tyson. Yes, they're inspirational, but again, I have nothing in common with them, So instead of looking above at all these stars, I look around. I see all the people around in my group, in my life, that I see them, pursuing their dreams, working hard, passionate, and it motivates me essentially to do the best that I can now. So I really try to be aware of the people around me, even my opponents that have gotten to Tokyo this year as well. I've been fortunate to know them for so long and kind of become friends after the competitions. And when you kind of learn other people's struggles and other stories, you realize that there is no, cookie cutter straight shot to success. There's always going to be a different perspective or story in getting to your goal. But at the end of the day, it's all about persistence. It's all about discipline, and it's all about, persevering to get there.
When you mentioned there, it's not about looking like above, but looking around for inspiration or motivation. It was an interview that I had read that you had given. I'm not sure if it was about this gym you're currently training at or a different gym, but you talked about how the people that like train in the taekwondo gym that you train at, like not all of them are going for the Olympics, but just being around people that are striving to be their best 100% of the time. Like, these aren't Olympic athletes around you, but just surrounding yourself with people with the same mindset, no matter what level of competition they're at. It sounded like that was enough to kind of permeate your mindset and push you to be at your 100% best.
Yeah, absolutely. The facility that I currently train, some of them are just starting their journeys. So I have a little bit of a different situation than them. I do, however, have a teammate. Her name's Briseida Acosta. She is a Olympic hopeful. She's actually competing this weekend for her final team trials to secure her spot for the Olympics. She qualified through the Pan Am regional qualifications last year. And then she was chosen again for the national team, but she has to do one more step to solidify that she's the best in that weight category for Mexico. She's fighting a previous 3-time Olympian, 3-time Olympic medalist, gold, silver, bronze. And so she has all this pressure on her, and I get to see firsthand how she copes with that. And it's inspirational. And just to kind of learn of her story, there's so much politics and pressure. And I mean, the normal average person would be like, what are you like? Why are you doing this? You're dealing with so much stress, but you see her demeanor, her motivation, her discipline, and her ability to just say, I don't care what you guys think, and I'm going to prove to you that I'm going to be the best. And that's inspirational to me. And so I've had, similar struggles, as there is always politics, right, in sports, but to see something firsthand helps me that much more to mentally be strong-minded in my own story.
I mean, I feel motivated myself now. I feel inspired to go do something crazy right now. And
and so
I'm sure. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. Sorry. I'm interrupting you.
No. I was going to say, I'm sure that anybody else listening right now is feeling just as inspired as I am. I mean, said, when it's around you can't ignore it.
Yeah. Cause it's your reality. You know what I mean? It's your life that you're living. And so the best form of motivation for me, it might not be others, is to live it first-handedly. So again, I've been very fortunate to be surrounded by amazing athletes. Again, my coach he himself is a 3-time Olympian, 2-time silver medalist. And so I've always strived to be somewhat like him and to get somewhat close to kind of his status is just a huge honor. And it was a goal of mine to follow in his footsteps, but it's always been the people around me that have motivated me. And of course, it's always good to educate yourself, because there's always something that you can learn from others. Podcasts, talking with a sports psychologist, and even reading books, you understand that everyone kind of has their own quirks and their own ways of coping. So it's really interesting, actually. My physio or sports psychologist, Alfredo, gave me this trick of when you're nervous and you're stressed out, when you start to hear those negative voices in your head come competition day, how do you cope that? And one of the things that he taught me is to say a tongue twister, right? So Peter Piper picked a patch of pickle. So one of those, right? Yeah. So when you do those, you can't just say it, because it's so complicated that you have to focus on it. You have to zone in and be present. And so that instead of hearing your voices, those voices in your heads, the stress, the nerves, you're just trying to say that phrase correctly, and all of a sudden those disappear, right? Yeah. And so after that, so I actually do that now in competition. When I feel myself like feeling anxiety or the nerves, I try to get myself out of that situation, and that's a perfect way is the tongue twister.
So in about 3 months' time, when I see you at Beijing and I see you,
you'll be.
I'll know you're thinking about Peter Piper.
Exactly. You'll be seeing my confused look as to, okay, what do I say again?
I think that's a very practical strategy for a lot of people to just incorporate in their daily life. And I think just overall being present is a beautiful point to end this interview off on. I really appreciate your time, Paige. I learned a lot
thank you for having me.
Really, really just inspirational podcast, and a lot of cool mental tips that I learned personally. So I know that that's a sign of a good podcast that everyone else will
great. I thank you so much.
Learn from as well.